Hey, you're live now, dummy.
I swear to God. Last time, what is it? Count two? That's the most available class. Really?
These people think that I'm somebody. Oh, there's a viewer now.
2.
Hi, everybody.
Scott here.
I didn't get high enough score for it.
Just chewing gum.
I'll be fine.
This is gray hair.
UofM really
Stuffed it up for us.
stuffed it up for us. I don't know if that sounds right phrasing, but they filled the whole room. All these aspiring game developers. There's a Blizzard developer someday right there. That guy's gonna work for Telltale. This girl's gonna probably be over at Square Enix. That guy, he looks like he's probably gonna work at like Riot. You can tell because. Oh yeah, they filled the whole room. This guy's a Blizzard dev. You can tell. The bird said she wouldn't.
Sorry, Roy, I lied. She said she wouldn't.
You guys can watch Emily today.
Alright, hi everyone. It's 7:10, so we're going to go ahead and get started. If I could have you guys all quiet down, including the officers over here. Just quiet down a little bit. How many of you guys went to the career fair today? Show of hands. A couple of you. No gaming companies there, really. I mean, Microsoft was there, a little unfortunate though. That's why we're bringing you guys, the gaming companies. A sneak peek, we're going to have our friends here today speak to us. But before that, let's just go through some quick announcements to give you guys a rundown. I'm going to do a very quick recap of the mass meeting. So instead of giving it in 45 minutes, I'm going to try to give it in 3 minutes, so we'll see how that works. We're going to do our usual This Week in Gaming and announcements, and then we're going to give the rest of the time to our presenters today. So, mass meeting. So, how many of you guys were able to come out for the mass meeting? Awesome. Very cool. So just to give you guys a quick rundown about who we are, what we do. We're Wolverine Software, the Game Design and Development Club here on campus. We have a diverse set of interests and skills, so we're not just programming, we do art, music, things like that as well. It's a no experience required club. All of our events are open to people regardless of their skill level or discipline. And overall, we're just trying to work together at events to learn how to make games. So we have our weekly meetings, that's where we are right now. Usually they'll be in 2150 Dow, though after the turnout at the mass meetings, we decided to get a bigger room just for tonight. The focus on this is usually game design. This is where we'll go through all the stuff that we're going through right now, and either get a guided discussion or get a guest speaker in. We have our dev sessions on Thursdays. This is where we actually go to learn how to make games. We have workshops in these, so this will be this Thursday is our first one. It's going to have a Unity crash course. And then the last thing that we do is our game jams. These happen twice a semester, 48 hours, you and a team of friends, get together, make a game over the weekend. I'm going pretty fast. If you guys have any questions, though, come talk to us at the end of tonight, and we can try to answer those. So other things that we have a Discord, and we play games every Saturday night on that. We have a Slack channel, so you can come and talk on that. And then we do some other fun stuff throughout the semester, so keep your eyes open for that. Just some highlights and questions that we've heard. People ask about, the time commitment. It's about 5 hours a week if you come to all of our things, plus the game jams each semester. But the reality is, come to the events that you want to come to. Our club is a la carte. So if you find you like certain events and don't like other events, come to the events that you like. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys want to learn some more information, go check us out on our website. Sign up for our mailing list. You can do that on the website. Get on our Facebook. It'll be awesome. All right, let's get started with the rest of the stuff. That was the 3-minute super fast mass meeting. We're going to do This Week in Gaming. So for those of you last year, this is something that we started. But essentially, we're going to do this actually in small groups first. But what we're trying to do is just keep up to date on recent events, things like that. So turn around or get into groups of 3 and talk to your neighbors. What news is there in the gaming industry? Are there any games that are coming out soon that you're looking forward to? And what games have you been playing, new or old? Just talk about those a little bit. And meet back in about 2 minutes.
Pretty
be a game.
Okay, so let's do in the gaming world. Swayboard's about to freaking launch. He's got really good questions on the board. What games am I playing? Swayboard, yes, Paladin. And what was the last question? And there's that. Okay, your turn.
Say, Emily,
Hey, Scott.
what games are you playing this week?
I already told you it's Swayboard.
What other games are you playing this week, Emily?
Swayboard.
And any other games, Emily?
No! We're not going to be invited back.
35 seconds, everybody. There will be a test. You know, I have no idea where the microphone is on this.
She's going to hear you scraping the table.
Yeah, you guys.
Hey, Roy!
Roy, can you hear scraping the table? Or is the microphone up here? Tell me if you're a thump or a scrape. Roy, we need you to look out for us, buddy.
Yeah, Roy.
All right, let's bring it back. Prepare to quiet down again. Let's see some hands. Who came up with something that they want to share? Yes.
FIFA 18 is coming out this week.
FIFA 18 is coming out this week. Awesome. Back there, yeah.
Samus Returns came out last Friday.
Samus Returns, the first Samus game that's supposedly good in a long time. Remains to be seen.
They don't know.
So I've heard some good things. Yes.
And that's the new Xbox,
New Xbox. Wait, did they really?
isn't it? Or did I just make this up?
You might have some inside information.
There's one coming out in November. A new one.
Alright, he's telling the future,
Is it like-
guys. He's telling the future.
It's like the same. It's the same like console, but like upgraded. Like
So like the iPhone stuff.
yes, like it's the
Yeah,
same.
well, she said it was cute.
There we go. Just, you know what that's freaking money.
Yes.
Act 2 comes out in October.
Woo! All right. What else we got? Back there. Super Mario Odyssey. Yeah, there's a lot of fun Switch games coming out. In terms of like news, what kind of news have you guys been seeing around the industry? There's one big one on r/games today. Did anyone catch it?
Battleborn is dead.
Rest in peace. Your life was short-lived. Oh, we got one over here.
It's a little bit late, but Russell Brower, the audio director of Blizzard for about the last decade and a half, has been removed of his position because they found out that siloing independent games with their own audio teams works better.
Interesting. Unfortunate. All right. Gotcha. Let's keep moving. So, announcements and upcoming events. These are some pictures. We are at this rich person tailgate. Is the best way to describe it. Like all the rich alumni that donate a lot of money, and they like theme it. So the theme was like games, and so there's President Stitchell. He didn't say anything about
He didn't
games.
say
So,
anything. He didn't even come up to us.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything.
if you wanted to know where we were
Wait,
last
you know what?
Saturday.
We did learn that the incoming freshman GPA is like an average of 3.8 or something like
makes me
that.
feel
So
a
this,
bit
yeah,
worse
great
about
to know.
myself. All right, but yeah, in terms of stuff coming up, we have a survey. This was sent out in the email, but if you went to one of the mass meetings, we'd appreciate if you filled out. We just wanted to get some like more insight on what sort of our advertising effort was like this year. In terms of upcoming events, we have our first dev session this Thursday in the Shapiro Design Lab. Sort of already mentioned that. We have our first game night this Saturday as well, and then next Monday, we're going to have Riot here. But yeah, cool stuff. So yeah, just giving you an idea. So I mentioned that we're always going to be trying to answer, a question at these Monday meetings. So the question we're answering here is, what is being a game developer? So we're going to look first, I don't know about indie as a good title, maybe as like a, smaller or sized company, newer. So that's our first sort of kind of game developer that we're looking at today with strength in numbers. Obviously everyone kind of probably knows what Riot Games is on next week. And then we're also going to talk about the hobbyist perspective, which is sort of what we are as Wolverine Soft over in October, so a little ways out from now. But yeah, that's sort of what our plan is here moving forward, answering this question. And with that, that's all I have for you guys today. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves for the most part, but today we have a fantastic guest speaker from Strength in Numbers. So yeah, Scott. Oh, I already forgot how to pronounce the last name. Reshi?
That's good enough.
Yeah, good enough. There you go. Yeah, feel free to take it away.
All right, everybody. I've seen some faces here that I've seen before. There's a lot of... last presentation I was at, I stood about-ish here, but the projector came to here, and she didn't tell me I had a white mustache for an hour and a half. And so anyway, my name's Scott Reschke. I'm the CEO of Strength in Numbers Game Studios. I see some friendly faces in back. There's even somebody wearing some of our swag. We've got some more friendly faces back there. I saw a couple people milling about. You may have heard parts of this story so far. Strength in Numbers Game Studios is the best, smallest game company in Michigan right now. We were the second largest game company in Michigan for a little while. We had 54 developers at the peak of the development cycle. And I am here today. I want to say thank you first for the invite. I was originally a theater major 100 years ago, so I love talking on a stage. So you guys get to listen to me talk on a stage, and applause whenever you feel like it. If you guys want to cheer, go right ahead. This is going to help me out. But you're going to hear all about indie game development through an exceedingly unfiltered perspective, which is mine. And I'm really bad at blocking the things that I'm not supposed to say. Some of you today will have your spirits crushed so hard, and I'm just going to be like, you know what, good, because then I will stop you from making mistakes in your life or your career. Some of you are going to go, you know what, he just did it wrong. I am way smarter than him because I'm a UofM student. I went to Ferris, right? So it's, shit. So anyway, I'm going to share with you everything that has happened along the way, so that way you can get an idea of what it's like to be in indie game development, and whether or not that's something you're going to actually want. Because right now, I'm assuming everyone, since this is Wolverine Soft, at some point thinks they're going to be a game developer. Is there anyone here who is looking at something other than game development? What are you guys doing here?
I need to have variety in my life.
Variety in your life. All right, what else? So what is it you're going to go into?
I have no idea. I'm a freshman. It's my first 3 weeks.
Well, at least he's honest. What else have we got? Who wasn't going to be?
Well, I'm going into CS, so this is at least somewhat related.
Fair enough. All right, well, this will crush your spirit, too.
I'm going to be an archaeologist.
Oh,
UofM students, I tell you, I just don't really know what to do here. So at any rate, this will give you a very, very, very unfiltered, realistic view of what goes on inside this industry. And it is really great. You'll have really good times, and you're gonna be rock bottom sipping on a bottle of vodka. I mean, honest to God, it gets rough. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the game. And I want to throw this out so I'll forget at the end. There are a couple other things. This is very much QA through the whole time. Raise hand, interrupt, I don't really care. I'm not a professor. You're not going to get me all butt hurt. Throw out questions if you got them at various stages along this. From there, Wednesday, we are doing a game demo at an exceedingly unfortunate time for Eastern Standard Time to an exceedingly large company that if they like it, blah, blah, blah. So anybody that is not busy between the hours of 2:30 and 5-ish on Wednesday who wouldn't mind helping us present this to a big company, we could use some more warm bodies in our lobbies. Right now, and anybody that wants will just email over. Emily will send you a product key because we've been doing a lot of internal testing, a lot of external testing. The problem is the big challenge you're going to see is as an indie studio, gaining traction for a multiplayer game is really, really, really hard. And it's especially even harder right now because of Blizzard is just pounding the crap out of all multiplayer games, that and PUBG. So right now is an awful time to be starting. The only person, I mean, there are exceptions. I know David Kai. Does anybody here know David? Everybody turn around and wave at David. He's right there. He's got a really awesome shirt on. Would you stand up, David? So he's wearing one of our Twaybor t-shirts. The character is Terror. It's a robot that's got a human brain, very RoboCop-ish. I'm a big fan of cyberpunk and sci-fi. Thank you, David. David has a startup game company as well he's been working on for a lot of years. He's gotten a lot of traction. I forget the name of it. I am so sorry. Armor Blitz. And he's done a very good job at attracting multiplayer customers to it, but he's got a very niche genre, which was a very smart play, because he's kind of the only game in town for that, unless there's a lot of competition that I wasn't aware of. So that is a good lesson is be different, pick something that's unique, whether it's gameplay elements or visual aesthetic or audio aesthetic, anything that sets you apart from the competitors. Think about right now on Steam how many first-person shooters there are. You know, at some point, these started off as people going, it would be so much fun if we did this. And at the end of the day, it's just another CS knockoff or BF knockoff or COD knockoff or whatever. So if you're going to do something and you really want to tackle it, make sure it's different. I know that's very cliche. You're going to hear that from a lot of people through this. I can't stress it enough that the games industry is highly oversaturated right now with products. Originally, when you had to actually have either a really high skill level or a lot of money and a big team to make a good product, it would kind of put an artificial gate in the way of only good stuff kind of rose to the top. Well, indies can do it now. You can have 1, 2, 3, 5-man teams, but the problem is now there are so many of these 1, 2, 3, 5-man teams that there is just so many games flooding the market. Every 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, Steam has 200 new games on it. So how are you going to get noticed when there are more games per 2 weeks than there are people in this room? So the way you get noticed is either really spend a lot of money on marketing or make it different and unique in some really fun way. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Braid. We approached Electronic Arts 2 years ago to try and pick us up. Yeah, that was EA. And they said, amusingly enough, our game didn't look indie enough. And so for them, indie has that certain appeal to where it's a lot of 2D side-scrollers or 3D side-scrollers or things that feel indie. We approached other studios, and they said, well, you don't look AAA enough. So we managed to land somewhere in the shit zone. We didn't do bad enough, and we didn't do good enough. So what we tried to do was make a game that was a ton of fun. Now, just show of hands out here, has anyone, and this isn't going to be shaming anybody, has anyone here heard of the game, the Twaybor game, prior to them saying anything about it today? Yeah, a couple, three, not bad, not bad. Yeah, go ahead and connect anyway, can't verify the identity. Marketing is as important as game development. Because you can make a super fun game that nobody's ever going to hear of and nobody's going to play. The interesting challenge we've had with our game is, and David hasn't played in a while because he's kind of an SOB about it. He unsubscribed to our mailing list. I'll call you out right now, Dave. Sign back up to our mailing list.
I was on it 3 times. I only unsubscribed 1 time.
Oh, the things Emily said about you. And everybody. She always says I'm really bad about introducing. This is Emily Springer. She's our marketing community manager. She's done a great job of helping me get to and reach a lot of different people and try and build a community. Unfortunately, timing was really rough because when we had the most people interested in looking at us was when we had the worst, the product was in the worst shape. And this again comes down to how you market, how you position, and also lessons about what the global game market has turned into. I made the mistake of thinking that early access meant I could put it on early access, so that way we could bug fix, test, stabilize, polish, make better. Turns out, and this was something that I believe it was from Epic Games, had said, oh, Scott, you big fool. Early access just means that your pre-selling game codes, it's supposed to already be gold released by that point. So whereas I thought early access meant we could take the time to actually polish it and make it into something really, really good, the expectation now from the customer, and you're probably all guilty of this as well, believe that if I pay my money in early access, it better be as good as it's ever going to be. Well, that's not the case from a development standpoint, but again, be prepared. If you go on early access through Steam, people already expect it to pretty much be gold release ready. Because we've seen people come and go, and now that we have the product in a polished in a way better than it's ever been, super stable, super fun, ready to go, polished animations, added the particle effects, got everything optimized like we wanted, we now have fewer people looking at it. Which,
Sorry to disrupt. Oh, I left my dongle when I was in. Now you're using it. Okay.
That's not my.
But feel free to just take it out. That's fine.
Okay, I got the CFE owns it. Okay. Okay. Here,
Destroy the
That's right, guys. Game developer. So I'm going to art the fuck out of this. So our original concept art for this game was my drawing stick figures. So this was my original robot that had rocket launchers on his shoulders. So you guys go ahead and be envious right there. This was where it all started. You know, I just realized I am jumping ahead a little bit here. So from a standpoint of raising capital, I get a question a lot from people of how do I get money for game development. I'm assuming now with the exception of some of you. Are any of you going to be starting game companies, or do you just want to be worker bees? Do we have any aspiring CEOs in the crowd? Got a couple? There is no money for you. In this state, there's a ton of money, and you hear it in the news all of the time, especially surrounding Detroit or Ann Arbor. There is a little bit for app development. Larry actually is trying to help us out a little bit through Ann Arbor Spark. He's been a great resource. If you have not met him yet, make it an effort to find out who Larry Cooperman is and start talking to him if you're going to be a game developer. Networking is huge. But anyway, there is no money in this state for game development. It's a sad fact because there is no real game development in this state outside of Stardock, you got it right. And even then, they're moving a lot of their operations over to Boston, I believe, unless it's somewhere on the East Coast. I thought it was Boston.
I think it's like Virginia for something.
Oh, might be wrong. I thought that they said, but so money attracts businesses of the area that it was originally in. So you have a lot of very wealthy people in this state that are putting money into startups, typically in industries that they already worked in. So anytime you hear in the news, all this money is flowing into Detroit for startups. Typically you're looking at healthcare, energy, or automotive. Now if you can tie in whatever you're working on to be one of those things, if you can gamify any of those things, you'll probably have just buckets of cash rain down on you, because those have a high profit margin for things that can be done with it. Game development is typically looked on as same dour face as film or television. People see it as some passion project for art that nobody's going to really like and there's nothing you can do with it. They don't really understand. That's an unhappy face right there. My God, what did I say that made you so upset?
Well, it's just that sad fact that you stated. It is indeed tragic.
It is, and unfortunately, I spent 2.5 years trying to raise money. Maybe 3 years. What was the last amount of time I said it the last time?
I don't know, like 7.
Was anybody listening to me the last time I was talking about it? We're going to go with 4 years ago. So I'd left my job. I'd owned a cyber cafe for about 8 or 9 years. You guys are way too young. This was in East Lansing, called the Frag Center. We had something like 600,000, 700,000 hours aggregated of game time with people coming in to play video games on my PCs. And using that time over 8.5, 9 years, I collected the data to see, all right, they played this game this much, and I would talk to them and find out, what did you love about this, what did you hate about that, why are you playing this new game instead of that one, etc. and so forth. And it was using that I got the blueprint of the game that I wanted to make. Now, the blueprint for this game was established around 2008, 2009. League was just still in beta. Han wasn't out yet, I don't believe. Dota 2 was not even on the horizon. And so the idea of an arena-based hero action game was pretty fresh. And so I was pretty excited because we were going to do some new stuff nobody had seen before. Here's your first important lesson for today. There's something they teach you in business school called first to market. Anybody here ever heard that before? First to market means it doesn't matter how good it is, if it's the first one to market, people are going to notice it first and use it the most. It's kind of like why the iPhone, despite the fact that it is an inferior piece of equipment, still has such a huge following, is because they already established an ecosystem that hooked people in to stay with them. Because right now, if you were ever going to buy a product, you wouldn't buy one with lower specs, the worst connection, can't do a Sprint's newer 600 megahertz band, the camera has a lower resolution. Why would you ever buy that? But they got to market first and said, everybody, buy our stuff and keep buying our stuff. And so that's how they got you. So amusingly enough, can we make the magic happen here? Because I want to show you guys some things that'll make you happy and sad all at the same time. Let's see. I don't need a dongle. Let me see what's on my browser before I turn this on. For no particular reason. All right, good. Safe for work. Pop this guy up. I really don't want to rip it out. So, will this drop automatically?
Oh. No.
Wah, wah.
Wow. We can still see. Yeah.
I'm not so old as I can't figure out how to push a button on the screen. All right. So, has anybody here ever heard of, it's a real small game by a studio that is up and coming. Have you guys ever heard of the game called Overwatch? You have you? So, all of my characters I had written, designed, developed for visual appeal, backstory, abilities, everything between 2008 and 2010, 2011-ish. So, would you care to guess what we are told this character is a knockoff of?
It's hard.
So this character is an homage to one of my favorite movie stars, which is Clint Eastwood, which is why I named him Clint. Originally his name was Cowboy Clint. Well, Overwatch has managed to shit all over my hopes and dreams as much as possible. Now, unintentionally, obviously, but the point behind this is first to market. You can talk about this great idea, you can have this great idea all you want, but if you can't get it out before somebody else does, nobody's going to care that I came up with this dude 7 years before Blizzard released Overwatch. It doesn't make any difference. So if you've got a good idea, work like hell right now to get it made. Get it prototyped. Other thing, and I'm going to jump around a lot here. This will actually be the least linear lecture I ever give. Emily, you know what? She's tired of hearing it. I've given this so many times. Okay. So, prototype as quickly as you can. One of the things that sucked me in, now I had owned a business for a decade before this. I was a middle manager for some Fortune 500 companies prior to that. I knew how to run a business. Software isn't that much different than other stuff that I'd worked on, so that wasn't where the problem was. The big thing is, and you guys should be learning this already, other than maybe the freshmen, is prototype, rapid prototyping, rapid prototyping, rapid prototyping. I said it.
Was anyone paying attention?
You said practice prototyping twice, but prototyping 3 times.
All right, well, there we go. Give that man a cookie. Because I fell into the trap of believing that what I wrote down on paper was gospel, that it was going to be better than anything else, and that without playtesting it, it was going to be so much fun. So we spent, well, the better part of the first year building exactly what I had on paper. And then we discovered it wasn't much fun. So visual appeal, the aesthetic was good. I love cyberpunk. I love the art. I love my concept artist. Towards the middle, early slash maybe a quarter of the way through to middle, I started really loving my artists. How many here are 3D modelers? Anyone? We got a couple of you. So does that mean the rest of you all are CS? I'm just trying to, in my head, tailor what's relevant. All right, so there's like 3 game developers in this room. Did the rest of you see a signs of like free pizza or something? Is that? So I ended up loving the artist after a little while. It was a little rough to begin with, but so the art aesthetic was really cool. People have really kind of they have picked heroes that they really love of ours, and we wanted to have a huge variety of things to choose. I had done a lot of market research into seeing that the younger the people are, teenagers typically gravitate towards characters that look either scary, grotesque, or badass in some way. When you start getting into the 20-somethings, then they start getting into the more cool factor. They look more sleek, almost, I'd say, not specifically anime-ish, but more of that mentality of everything is kind of smooth or armored or gunny in some way. And then when you start getting into 30+, then they start playing characters. Now, this is just kind of market research. This isn't gospel necessarily, but what we found over and over and over again is it holds pretty true. The older the people got, typically they more like playing the paladin-style characters, where they're kind of more the good guy that is either the tank or the healer. Younger demographic skews towards wanting to be more of the assassin class, or the damage dealers or that kind of thing. So, and again, not always true. Some of you are very young now, and you may really like playing healers or tanks or whatnot. But we found that according to the market research, that was pretty verifiable. So we made a lot of characters to hit various market demographics. Plus, although the research is skewed a little bit, has anybody here ever read the annual ESRB reports about market demographics, sales, revenues, anything like that? Well, you should, if you're in game development. You need to know what is selling so you can get an idea of what is going to be selling next. It does show that it's a 50-50 split between men and women gamers. And although yes-ish, it's aggregating data from all platforms. And so when you separate it out, you'll find the women gamers are typically handheld, mobile platform. So when you're trying, you can't just read that and go, well, shit, I'm making an Xbox game. I got to make sure it hits both demographics. Realistically, still, you're going to find that typically consoles and PCs are predominantly male, teen to 20-something dominated. And again, not always the case, but if you're going to make a product, you have to look at it of who's going to buy it. Because realistically, again, if you make the thing you love the most, that's the most beautiful, and nobody buys it, what the hell was the point of making it in the first place? A lot of you probably still have the delusion that you're going to do this to be some kind of artist or make some kind of artistic statement, and you're going to do one of those theater major things where it's for the love of the craft. Don't. It's a job. When you get far enough along, you can do all of that artsy BS. But right now, you've got to look at it as a job, because the people that are going to hire you aren't going to look at you as some idiot savant that's going to make the next greatest everything, right? They are going to be hiring you to make the thing that they're working on the way they want you to do it, the way they want you to program it, the way they want you to art it, the way they want you to music it, the way they want it, not the way you want to do it. And that is something that I struggled with a little bit with my staff. I did have some senior developers who had worked, a couple of the guys had worked at AAA studios for the last 15, 20 years. And they helped me. Unfortunately, it came on a little later in the cycle after I had started making lots of mistakes. But they helped me rein in the junior staff because I hired just about everybody, artist-wise and engineering, from Michigan schools or graduates or stuff like that. Most of our artists came from CCS. You guys familiar with that at all? College for Creative Studies in Detroit? They primarily deal with art-based stuff. I don't know if they even do any engineering stuff. But the challenge I ran into was these artists, because they didn't really have any experience in a development pipeline, just assumed that they would kind of art things and then we'd see if we liked it or not. And in a couple of cases, I would request something to look very cyberpunk, and then the way it came back would look very fantasy, sword and board kind of stuff. I'm looking for Shadowrun, and instead they gave me Dungeons and Dragons. And so that is just from inexperience on both their side as a developer and my side as a leader of game developers. So keeping in mind, people will hire you if you can do what they want you to do very well. This is a cutthroat market, and right now, unfortunately, for most of you, there are plenty of you. Meaning, you can be replaced. You are replaceable. I know that's hard to hear, UofM students and all that. But there are always more developers. And if you don't hit deadlines, you will be fired. The big mistake I made was not firing people soon enough. And I know that sounds harsh, but realistically, at the end of the day, the money that I raised wasn't to give people time to learn how to do something. It was to pay them to do the thing that they were working on. That being said, engineers, don't just learn Unity. Unity is the number one thing taught in colleges right now. But look at Blizzard. If you want to be hired at Blizzard as an engineer, what do they program in? C++. What's Unity? Not C++. Dig your feet into the Unreal Engine. Dig your feet into Unity. Dig your feet into every engine under the sun, because if you are an engineer, you need to know how to work the magic that they do and not just pigeonhole yourself into, oh, I only know Unity, so I'm only going to go after Unity jobs. That's going to suck to be you. The other thing is, if you take a look, Unity is typically only used by small indie studios. What was the last AAA Unity game any of you can think of? You know what? Recore?
Yes.
I guess I'm not familiar with that one. I'll have to look it up. Hearthstone, Blizzard, just for whatever reason, their developers chose to use Unity for that. But if you take a look at the Unity best of for last year or the year before, you've never heard of any of the best of Unity games ever. I'm not saying this to tell you not to use Unity. I'm not telling you this so that way you don't pay attention in Unity classes here. I'm telling you, learn how to use the software that the place is hiring for. So if you want to work at EA, if you want to look at Blizzard, if you want to work at, help me out.
SiN Studios.
Strength in Number Studios, if you want to look at, let's see, who makes Paladins? That's
Hi-Rez.
Hi-Rez or Telltale. All of them on their website list what they're hiring for and what you have to have experience in. Don't make the mistake of thinking that you're just so awesome that they're going to hire you anyway, because they don't have time for your I'm trying to rein it in a little bit here. If they say no ZBrush, no ZBrush. If they say that you need to know how to use Maya, don't assume that you're going to put, well, I was a Blender person, and that you're going to get hired. They don't care. Because all the rigging is going to be done in Maya. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever fought with Maya before, but you cannot cross-platform them between Blender and Maya. It is just the biggest pain in the ass, and it typically won't work right. So career advice right there is figure out where you want to end up 5-10 years from now. Go to their site tonight, see what they're hiring for, and learn that over the next 5 or 10 years. Almost every developer that worked for me, that got their start from me, is now working at AAA studios. It's a little frustrating for me that I don't still have them, but at the end of the day, we're at the down part of the development cycle. It is a point of pride that a lot of our guys are now working. Did Zach move over to?
He's at Hi-Rez.
He's at Hi-Rez.
Dylan was at Telltale.
Dylan was at Telltale and is now moving to Hi-Rez. Gabby is moving to Hi-Rez. Daniel went over to Call of Duty, and now he got hired by Blizzard. So these are all people that grew up Detroit, Ann Arbor, Lansing, Flint, whatever. Anyone in this room can go have those jobs. At the end of the day, these people had to put the time in, figure out how to do it, and none of them knew how to do it from the start, with maybe a couple exceptions. All of them did bust their butts for me at the end of the day. And I think the last time I gave a live lecture, one of our former employees was like, "Hey, did Scott talk a bunch of shit about us?" And no, I realistically appreciated every one of them for what they put in, and any failings were mine for not knowing what I needed to lead them in. Keep that in mind if you're ever going to be a business owner. You can blame your employees all you want, but at the end of the day, it's your fault for not making sure you either hired the right people or made them do the job right. It is so easy to say, "Oh, I hired this guy, and it didn't work out. Oh, it was his fault." It's not. It's your fault. You didn't hire the right person, or you didn't enforce the right rules. Deadlines are a real thing. I think I touched on that a little bit. If you get to work at a AAA studio, you will have a project manager who will not be your friend. He will only be there to say, "Make this pretty by tomorrow." And if it isn't pretty by tomorrow, you're fired, because they've already got 300 other applicants waiting to take your job. This is the harsh reality of game development. It is not this oasis that, what was the movie, Grandma's Boy?
Yeah.
Has nobody seen it? Makes you think of game development as just playing video games all day long. To be honest with you, I've come to hate video games. Because all I've done is play them all day long, trying to figure out what did they do, how can we use that in ours? What did they do, how can we use that in ours? Emily's got like 800 hours just in our Steam version of our game, and I've got something like 400 hours in, and man, I love my game so much. But holy crap, am I tired of playing it. Because you get to the point where it becomes a grind, and you'll get there too. All of you will hate the things that you used to love. I told you it was going to be an unfiltered thing here. But at the end of the day, the nice thing about game development is you get to start in something new eventually. So you get to fall in love all over again. So we're going to back up. Actually, you know what? Since I've got your attention here, does anybody else think it's like 3,000 degrees in this room right now?
Yeah.
Is there a magical button that allows me to turn on an air conditioner? I'm going to open this door to see if there's a little airflow going in.
We got a thermostat right here. It's your thermostat.
There's even one out here. If I turn this down, does the whole campus get cold?
We are at UofM.
And I do want to point out, Wolverine Soft. I'm not going to make you give each other a round of applause. We're not that big into circle jerking. It's fantastic that you guys have done this tonight. We've been invited a number of times. I don't know why you keep inviting me back. To come speak. I've spoken at a lot of different schools. You guys have, honest to God, delivered the most people. Great questions. We've gotten to talk to a lot of really great people. I know the people putting Wolverine Soft together and kind of helming it have done a fantastic job, so I really appreciate it. Do listen to them. These leaders are putting a good experience together for you to try and get you more knowledge. When I saw that ours was next to Riot, I was like, shit, I can come check out Riot and see what they have to say. But, so I really appreciate, I do a little tongue-in-cheek jokes from time to time. We are in downtown Lansing, which there is apparently a rival school somewhere close to my business. Rival.
It's not a school, it's like a little, dirt town.
Yeah, it's nothing but farmers in Lansing.
Gotta get this kid on camera.
This kid on camera. Anybody
We're gonna remember
who
that
wants to come
face.
see him. But, so I'll get you up. While we got this up, so we're up on Steam. The other thing to keep in mind, distributors are not your friends. They're going to want to take a giant bucket of your cash and give you nothing in exchange for it. Steam is nice in regards to it does have access to about 165 million people globally, right? So you think, hey, I'm on Steam. We're going to just have scads of customers. Well, you'd be wrong.
how it works, and I got to dance around a little bit because they do make you sign a non-disclosure agreement. Basically, at the end of the day, Steam loves the games that people already love. So if you've never been heard of, this isn't how they're going to hear of you. So you have to already keep planning, how am I going to market the game outside of the distributor? You have to look at this as solely a distribution channel. This is how you get, where you send your customers to buy your product. Don't look at them as the way that it's getting first touch to your customer. That's just not how it works. And to be fair, it's not just Steam, it's any distributor. At the end of the day, they're just looking to house your package, house your software to allow customers to download it and play it. There are lots and lots and lots of distributors. Some of them you have to be a little careful of. Steam is easy because everybody knows it's legitimate, but there are a lot of shady distributors out there that are just trying to gain access to your software. We won't get into the hows or whys, but since most of you haven't actually heard of this game before, I'm going to play our trailer for you. This is our in-game teaser. We're working on getting a more cinematic one put together because, again, one of the things we learn is people attach emotionally to a product. If they don't attach emotionally to a product, they're less likely to purchase it or play it. That's why we went through a lot of work to make backstories. We have a lot of different characters. One of the things that I was going to actually show off, I'm going to go back to the character tab. Oh, Scott, you big dummy. Is we've got 30 heroes. Originally we had 60 planned, but when we looked at the development pipeline, we realized it takes X number of days to art, to concept, to model, to rig, to weight map, to animate, to engineer, to balance, yada, yada, yada. And since we knew we wouldn't have enough time to do all 60 of them, we said we're going to start with 30 because 30 was a pretty decent number since a lot of MOBA asks were launching with anywhere from 10 to 15. And you know you can't compete with League because League already started out with, what, 120? Or oh, just, well, oh no, you're right. Way back in the day, they started with 40. They're over 100 some now.
Yeah.
But I knew if I got lower than 30, people would go, oh, it's just another shitty MOBA that doesn't have enough heroes. But it also allowed us to do a lot more with visual appeal, as well as a lot of different fun things with how the character abilities work together. And honest to God, game design is so much fun when you start getting it right after you've iterated a bunch. Each one of these characters we have played for hundreds and hundreds of hours to see, does ability 1 work with ability 2, ability 3, ability 4, etc. and so forth. We knowing, and this I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, that the market isn't just middle-aged white men. I wanted to make sure that I had an appeal for a broader audience. And so looking into it, we made sure to put various races, ethnicities, monsters, male, female, half, whatever, this, that. Technically, we are the first game studio that ever released a hero that was homosexual. About 6 months later, Blizzard released their whole, hey, this character's gay, and I was like, screw you guys. But in case you guys are wondering, it's Monko here. His backstory is actually pretty cool. He was cut in half and stitched together as this gross mutant, well, I guess not gross, but hybrid scorpion guy, and so he goes crazy seeking revenge on the people that killed his husband, yada, yada, yada. Because at the end of the day, making a character homosexual isn't going to change how they're going to swing their sword or do damage or any of that kind of stuff whatsoever. It just is a backstory. They don't prance around in any stereotypical fashion or anything insulting like that, but it did allow us to have a better, more rich story. Side note, which always made me feel a little sad and laugh on the inside at the same time, keep in mind you will never make everybody happy at the same time. No matter what you put out there, someone will hate on it, they will toxically hate on it, they will tell you how much they hate on it, and they will tell you how awful it is and how you should just kill yourself. The internet is a terrible, terrible place filled with wonderful people that have no ability to shut the hell up. We were originally, when we first started putting out some marketing stuff, just to see what people thought of it, we had put out there a lot of pictures of characters. I don't remember which one it was. It might have been Illyria here. She's my personal favorite character. I like to play her more than the rest. I mean, just a half spider body. I mean, she's really cool. She's a hit-and-run assassin. Her ulti lets her go invisible. Invisible. It's been a long day, guys. Sorry. And she has like a pounce strike. She can slow people and stun, and she gets a speed boost, etc. and so forth. Well, we got blasted for her not wearing a shirt. Despite the fact that nothing really risque is showing here, we got some really awful posts about misogynistic, sexist, male-dominated, unrealistic video games, blah, blah, blah. So the thing that they failed to see or point out was the fact that we have multiple male heroes that are completely nude. So this character is made up of realistically an infinite number of nanites, right? I really love sci-fi, and I was a big fan of Terminator series, and he's kind of loosely based off Terminator 2's liquid metal dude, right? Although instead of it being whatever metal, these are just an infinite number of nanites. So he's got no clothing on whatsoever, but that was not pointed out. Or the fact that our only character that is completely covered in armor is female. So this is just a word of caution for you guys. It's okay to love your art. It's okay to love your game. It's okay to have females with not a full suit of armor on, or males, or that kind of stuff. Because no matter what you do, someone's going to tell you that it's wrong. Keep that in mind. I know it's really easy, and you've probably heard it a bunch of times, especially for the artists who are in the room. You guys, the self-loathing is amazing with artists. Just the inability to let go and go, this is good enough. It really is amazing. But keeping that in mind, when you get ready to let your little birdie fly out into the marketplace, no matter how good it is, people will hate on it. So gird your loins a little bit. Does anybody have any questions before I keep rambling on? Say again?
It's a trailer. Are you going to play it?
No, I was going to play the trailer. We had questions first.
Do it now.
Yeah.
So you said that you have been working a lot for this game. Mm-hmm. Only one game, right?
Ish. So I over budgeted on art and hired way too many artists. And we have enough static meshes and models to make a dozen different games. And so while we were ramping down production on this, pitching this to different publishers and marketing firms, we have already started development on 2 other products, all using the same assets, but entirely different genre. We've got one that's called Kate Must Die, which is a horror VR game. Horror VR is really hot right now, and the beauty about that for us is our meshes are just gorgeous, and if you take a look at most horror, it is whatever crap they could find off of a 3D model marketplace. And I mean, someone tell me I'm wrong. Yeah. So we're trying to actually release a product that looks really good and is fun. Plus, it is a lot easier to make. A single-player game in this kind of experience, you don't have to worry about a lot of different things, stat balancing, multiplayer problems, getting community around it, blah, 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 because people can buy single-player off the marketplace, stick it in their Steam pile of shame, and then you still got the money for it, and they still can play it a year from now. Whereas if you've got a multiplayer game that didn't get any community, that's one of the big problems we're running into right now is trying to get noticed in a marketplace that is already hyper-saturated with PUBG and Unreal or Overwatch.
Is there any reason you guys went with like an early access, like full buy price instead of like a free-to-play model?
We actually originally did do free-to-play. We have about 28,000 installs of it. But the problem was the same thing with all free-to-play games. People download it so they can have the key, and then they just don't bother playing it, which didn't help us because we went free-to-play so that way people could actually help us get stat balancing, load balancing, blah, blah, And then we got a bunch of hyper-toxic negativity from almost universally. People did not want another microtransaction free-to-play game. So in our game, there are lots of stat boosts and stuff like that that you can, very similar to how League does theirs. There's nothing you can buy that makes you better than anybody, but just the hyper-negative feedback was don't do microtransactions, don't. So then we figured out, all right, from a value proposition, how does it look, how does it play, what kind of product are we selling? We had to base what the price was. On top of that, you want to price it actually higher than what you think the game is worth, because people won't buy your game at full price. They'll buy it at sale price. So if you think your game is worth $19, you need to actually put the retail at $25 so you can discount it by whatever, 20-30%. It's a hard truth. When was the last time you bought something on Steam at full price?
Just out of curiosity, from a large development where you have like, it seems like you have like periods of development where you scale up and then you scale down.
Correct.
Right? So when you scale up, how do you like kind of like equipment and all those costs? Do they just like you get a bunch of them after that when everyone's gone, or do they bring their own equipment?
It really depends. My entire long-term plan was to create jobs that lasted through multiple products. Ideally, I wanted to be doing this for the next, 30, 40 years of my life. And so it was never, I didn't hire distributed for the most part. Some of our leads were distributed just because they were from AAA and I was going to do whatever they told me they wanted to do. But they work from home on their own computers. You're going to have to get to know things such as Subversion or Perforce, any kind of distributed software. You're going to have to get friendly with agile development systems, Kanban boards, or I think some people call them Kanban, I don't know, however you want to pronounce it. But there's a lot of different stuff to do with distributed developers. For us, I rented out 6,000 square feet, bought 25 computers for the local office, and then for the other people, depending on where they're at, they would come and go using our equipment. Depending on what you're trying to accomplish, if you know you're just going to be hiring distributed developers, then they have to have their own equipment, or else you're just not going to hire them. And there are plenty of places you can look for them on the Unreal boards, on the Unity boards, et cetera, and so forth. As far as scaling goes, right now I do have, so all of the computers at the office where I don't currently have employees have been turned into servers because they were decent boxes and with good processor, a large amount of RAM, that kind of stuff. Excuse me. So it's more of you need to do pre-production planning of what you want to accomplish, and that lets you know how much budget you need. Because if you're going to hire 10 people and you know it's going to take you a year, and you know the minimum salary that these people are willing to work for is $40,000, that means you've got to have 400,000, or no, there's not 10 months in a year, is there? Jesus. So anyway, that gives you an idea of how much you need to budget for at the end of the year. That's a common mistake that I hear indies make, is they go, yeah, we're going to do this Kickstarter, and we're going to raise $25,000 so that the four of us can make this game, and it'll be out in a year, and it's like, 4 of you are going to live on $25,000 for a year? All right, good luck with that $6,000, that's fantastic. So, which is fine if you're a hobbyist. You've got us, indie, next coming up you have hyper rich, and then after that you have a hobbyist. Make no mistake, Riot makes a crap ton of money. They make over $1 billion in revenue on a completely free-to-play game. Not millions, billion in revenue on a free-to-play game. So, obviously there's opportunity for cash. They did a lot of things right. They did market research and saw there's already 3 million people playing Dota, which was a Warcraft 3 free mod. How many of you knew that? All right, you guys are smart. So the developers of the mod, a couple of them, IceFrog or whatnot, they realized we can make our own spin-off where we can have better physics, better graphics. We can free ourselves of the Warcraft 3 engine that was being used so they could make this game. And so at the end of the day, they made it very compelling. Nobody cares that they just spent $8 on a completely digital product, a skin that does not influence anything in the rest of their lives. They feel good because they're emotionally attached to it. That's what you're realistically selling, is emotional attachment to a product. whether it's horror or action or excitement, if you're trying to make somebody scared or happy. There was a gentleman, I'm a little bit nearsighted, so if you're in this room right now, I apologize, that had come to us asking about how to raise money for a video game that was to help people with PTSD. Are you in this room, person? No. Okay, good. So he kept asking, how do we raise money for the game, and I kept telling him, you're looking in the wrong direction. You're not making a game. You're actually making a product that helps people. If you try and raise money selling it as a video game, you will never raise the money. If you try to raise money saying it is as a psychological, emotional tool that helps people with PTSD, again, buckets of cash will be rained on you. So just keeping in mind, I just derailed that train. Product development, life science. Did I answer your question? Kinda.
So, from what I understand, this game you made, like you're making, is similar to Overwatch in ways that you were frustrated when Overwatch was released.
Oh yeah, very frustrated.
So after that, after playing Overwatch and looking at the game and looking at the similarities, did you try to change your game so that it will be more unique?
Yes and no. Our game is similar and dissimilar in terms of you have hero selection, you have game mode selection. From there, it kind of isn't anything like Overwatch. It's more of like Overwatch, League, and Rocket League had a baby. I don't know how you have 3 people making a baby, but whatever. They're plopped out, and that gave us our game. One of my big things was in doing the market research, I saw that people loved playing World of Warcraft. They would do battlegrounds, raiding, and arenas, but then they get super burnt out, and so they would want to jump over to play Dota, or they would jump over to play tower defense, or they would jump over to play Wario Party, or, and so I thought, well, why isn't there a game? And they would oftentimes say, I wish I had my hero in this other game. And so I thought, well, let's make a multimodal game where it has a death and glory, a team deathmatch, a capture the flag, an esports style game in there, where you can take your same hero that you're attached to and jump between game modes. And internally, we love it. And the people that have played it with us seem to really love it. And the challenge we're trying to face now is how do we get more people to hear about us? In theory, 2 months from now, we could have 5 million people playing it. Do any of you guys know the origin of PUBG?
Yeah.
Little?
It was an Arma. It was an Arma mod.
There was an Arma mod.
And then people were like, "This is a pretty good game." And then the player unknown, who was the developer of the mod, just went on and made it into it.
He did, and they didn't actually think it would do very well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys, going back to the Who Read the News, PUBG is the most played game on Steam of all time.
Yeah, it just surpassed Dota and CSGO.
Yep.
So.
You know who plays the PUBG a lot? Riot employees.
I'm sure they do. And Emily plays it for us on our weekly streams, and she actually almost got a chicken dinner out of it. Number 2?
Yeah.
Yep. So, anyway, so the game itself, we've had a lot of fun playing and a lot of fun testing, a lot of fun building. We like how it looks. One of the things I wanted it to be was I didn't want it to look ultra real because I knew it would take too long and have too many people. Oh, there's audio too? Hot damn. So this is a blend of, that's going to be really dark. Hang on. I know you guys are all super excited right there. Hang on. Well, I mean, there we go. So this is a blend of team death matches, some of our capture the flag. Every hero has a unique set of 4 abilities, plus a melee attack and a ranged attack, which are skill shot based. There are no targeted abilities in the game anymore. We played with that for a little bit. Yep, based off Rocket League.
Like a bass drop.
That was Team Deathmatch, and then this is our fourth mode, which is Death and Glory, wave-based. Gets harder and harder every wave. Every fifth wave is a boss. I'm not really sure why, but all three of our bosses are women. In theory. I think I was reading too much about people saying there are no strong female characters, so I'm like, alright, all the strongest ones are women.
So this is what you meant when you said like raid boss fights? Or...
Correct.
Yeah.
So that is our in-game teaser, which we've had a good response to. It's so bright, sorry about that. Obviously, it doesn't really attach emotionally, which is why we're working to get a cinematic one, where people can actually see more of the characters, feel them more of their stories, instead of just the real quick cuts between this, that, or the other thing. 8:15. Do I have 45 more minutes, or do I have like 15 minutes and then half an hour of QA?
You can do it however you want.
All right.
How did you make decisions on like music direction? Did you find like any interesting research on that?
Well, a lot of this I had done prior. I had spent a lot of time listening to, just like the art direction. I went onto CG Hub, and then there was another one. There were like 3 or 4 art sites that I just went to. I first drilled down the ones I liked, and then I reached out to them saying, you know, this is before we'd had any funding, and I'll get to you in one sec. And then I emailed them saying, are you willing to do some concept work for this little amount of money? And then from the ones that responded yes, I narrowed it down until I got the ones that I liked. And amusingly enough, let's see if I can bring it up. Oh dear God, listen, they don't pop up. Oh, Lord, I'm real nervous about that. I've recently started dating, and so they messaged me. No, that's not at all what I meant. I have had people message. Anyway, moving along. Let's see if I can find the. I need to find the albums, which are here. So some of our original concepts were done by a couple of community college artists who I really loved working with them. They obviously were not all the way skilled at the time for like deep illustrations, but it was by me giving my stick figure that he came up with this, which then got handed off to a concept artist or illustrator who then turned it. So this was the naked dude. And so it all starts somewhere. I mean, it doesn't matter how crude it is because you're going to get to the next level, to the next level, to the next level. And so without them, I would never have gotten to the next level of concepts. Which then, I don't know how badly Facebook's going to go back. Got me into the actual illustrations.
And so then it was taking that concept that he had drawn, handing it off to the illustrator, and getting this really cool thing out of it. So don't look necessarily down on people that aren't perfect, because at the end of the day, you have to pay a lot of money for the perfect people. Whatever you can do to get by, to get you to the next level. And this was the end result, obviously, of what my original stick figure sketch was. Man, that scares the crap out of me there. All right.
So, what sort of maybe science fiction, fantasy stories, or video games did you play, read, or watch when?
I love Blade Runner, Fifth Element. I'm so excited that the new Blade Runner sequel's coming out. I was a huge fan of Star Trek, original with Kirk, as well as I was okay with the Next Generation, but that wasn't kind of my thing. I liked Star Wars as a kid, but kind of fell out of love with it as I got older. It just, it wasn't telling what I felt as an adult of a tale. There's no blood anywhere, and everything just kind of was, a cutaway. Actually, before I finish that, you back there had a question.
Oh, I was wondering, since you had so many artists that you were working with, how did you maintain art consistency? Because everyone has their own style.
Well, originally I hired anybody I could find. After we'd gone through the concepting, a couple years went by where I didn't raise any money. Several years went by of me trying to raise the money. I did end up pulling in $650,000 from a private investor who I had pitched to a number of times, and he said no to me time after time after time after time. Then I got the state to come in at about $200,000, so that's why it says Pure Michigan there. That incentive is unfortunately gone, and it didn't work the way you thought it did anyway. It was an incentive that they paid you money after you had already raised all of the other money. So it was more like a refund for having employment and creating jobs in the state. A lot of people thought it was, hey, I'm going to start this company, give us, a couple $100,000. It was, you raise the money, then they refund you based off of what you raised. But for our consistency, the modelers I hired were just whoever I could find, because I was trying to hire nothing but Michigan employees and was just trying to fit them in. And we did end up, unfortunately, having to let go of about 30% of our staff within a month or two of their employment, because either the work quality wasn't there or the art style didn't fit what we were looking for. But it helped a lot when we got our art director and then our project manager, because they were able to keep it in scope and keep it in vision. So the consistency came from, originally with the artists working together, there was no consistency, but after several weeks, plus art director, plus project manager, it all started just kind of funnel into the right vision. So it was just by them being able to talk to each other. And that is another huge lesson. Communicate with the people you're working with. Nothing's more frustrating for somebody else further down in the development pipeline than when you have put a block on it. Has anybody here worked in development pipeline yet? We got a couple hands going up. I'll throw a real quick illustration up. I just realized it's still going to be on the screen. And I don't know, easiest way, is there a... There we go. So development pipelines are wonderful and awful. Basically, what's going to end up happening is, depending on where you fit as a developer, is going to dictate. God damn. Nailed it. So where you are as a developer is going to be somewhere along this pipeline. Concept for game development is where it starts. Actually, I should have made this a wave. Nothing to see here.
You know, get dry markers.
I got the good one this time, guys. You know what? We're going to just make this awesome. So this is start. You've got nothing. No love today from the markers. So over the course of development, you're going to have a lot of different stuff. Concept typically comes here. Concept and design. realistically, you need to start with design, because if you have no design whatsoever, then there's nothing to have other people work on. The next thing you're going to start doing is trying to figure out, now this is not all encompassing here. A project manager would look at me and spit if he saw this. So this is just a rough idea of how it's going to work for you. Once you get your design started, then you've got to hand stuff off to your concept artists. And the concept artists, after they've got done with it, are going to start handing it off to your 3D modelers. And depending on, they may be a character modeler, they may be an environment and props modeler. From there, now this, I guess I should just state, this is more for character design, not necessarily all of the game, but this is by and large how character design is going to work. You design the character. Ideally, you're going to do this with blocking out literally a gray box inside the engine that your engineer can pop little abilities on. Not necessarily entirely needed, but that's how it works. Throw it at concept artists and say, make Mr. Stick Figure look cool. Once you get your Mr. Stick Figure looking cool, you're going to throw it out to the 3D modeler and say, give that guy some dimensions. I got a big nose, so he can have a big nose. There we go. Oof. So then you're going to hand that off to the animator. Oh, that's a hell of a lie there. Caitlin Clow, I apologize for what I just did. Thank you, Seth. I'm going to hand that off to your technical artists. Technical artists are typically rigging and weight mapping. Anybody here doing any of that? God bless you people. Also, you are most likely to have a job over anybody else because there are so few good rigging and weight mapping technical artists. On top of that, anybody here going into visual effects? Not After Effects. More particle systems inside you. You are the only one 200% guaranteed a job. You don't exist as far as I know. We went through a half dozen people that said they were visual effects artists who were absolutely awful and just liars and thieves. We did find a couple that ended up being really good. It turned out our technical artist, Caitlin, ended up having a lot of skill in it, and once she figured out how the other ones who were bad had kind of started stuff, she was able to take it even further. So rigging and weight mapping, for those of you who aren't super familiar, is when you take your 3D model and then... Whoa. Something bad happened there. And you give them their 3D bones because, and then weight mapping, I'm going to butcher the hell out of this, I apologize, is basically kind of like giving weight to the joints and the skin so that way it doesn't, so when you move, it actually pulls on it the appropriate way.
Physics.
Not physics. Did you, weight mappers, did that sound all right? Yeah, good enough government work. So you hand it off to the rigging and weight mapping, and at the same time, roundabouts here, actually this one is a steady one. Boop. Engineering, so your computer science majors, engineering needs to know what's going on basically from step one, because they're the ones that are going to make all this stuff work together. Every step of the way, your 3D modeler, do not expect them to know how to rig and weight map. Do not expect them to know how to concept art. Although they may be artists, they may have zero skill in this particular field. The engineer is the one that actually plugs a lot of this stuff in, unless you're very lucky and you get people like I did who were willing to learn how to do the extra stuff. So at the same time, engineering has been given the design doc of saying, this particular character, he can run 15 meters per second. And 15,000 health, and he can jump 3 meters high. It's a superhero character. And so this is where they're starting to plug these things in at the same time as all this other stuff is doing. Now, concept is going to still be working until a certain point. Because once you've got 30 heroes concepted, just for example ours, you don't have a 31st hero, you don't have a need for a concept artist. So a lot of the times you're going to hire these people as contract. Or if you're a big company like Blizzard or whomever, you just shift them onto a different project. Same thing goes for 3D modeling and pattern rigging and that kind of stuff. Then it goes to the animator, and so what ends up happening is along these curves, I may not bell curve this entirely right, you're going to start laying off people that just simply don't have jobs anymore, that you don't have jobs for them. After the animator is done, a lot of times, although somewhere around about the same time, you've got a visual effects guy going in, but it's really hard for VFX people to know what they're supposed to plug in if they can't see what the character model is doing, especially if we're doing a 3D game. Now, a lot of this isn't necessarily going to apply to every type of game. So, for example, a 2D side-scroller, you will not have 3D models. You guys figured it out why? All right, you're missing a dimension. So this is just general rule of thumbs of what's going to happen. So depending on where you're at in the pipeline, you may not be needed for more than a month or 6 months or a year or whatever. About the same time, you've also got writers in here. So in writers, we'll follow kind of a similar arc. Once they've reached what you don't need them anymore, they get laid off or moved to another project. Well, so then you've got VFX, and at this point, kind of engineering is going to step in and make sure all of the engineering shit pulls it all together, and it starts working in game. Well, depending on where you're at, you'll be laying off a lot of developers, unless you have just loads and loads and loads of money. So you're going to hit kind of rock bottom a little bit for what you need, except for engineers. Engineers stick with you the whole time. Then you kind of ramp up on what you need, QA, QC. QA, QC is a thankless job. All you do is try and find bugs. You're not actually trying to enjoy the game. You're just trying to break the game. Because I guarantee you, no matter how many times you have played your character, some brand new person who has never played it before is going to make it not work. We've seen it over and over and over again. We have tested thousands of hours, and still somebody will come up with some brand new combination of the face roll buttons, and suddenly the server crashes for God knows what reason. So you got QA, QC. Now, in theory, marketing should be coming from the beginning. You want people excited about your project from the start. Marketing should stick with you, and this is where they really start to shine, because in marketing you've got QA, QC. Realistically, you're going to hit a hump of having people play a lot of the beta, and then you're going to kind of lull a little bit while you get systems ready until you go for gold launch. Again, this isn't gospel. This is just a general rule of thumb how our particular game pipeline worked. There was a point behind all this. Well, there you go. So, project managers are beautiful people I mentioned earlier, but they're not there to be your friend. They're there to make sure you hit a deadline. Yes?
I'm just curious, through this process, how much does it cost for a 3D character?
That's an excellent question. I brought that up before. Depending on who you hire. So if you're hiring a AAA contractor, expect to pay between $1,500 to $2,000 for the 3D model. Just the model. Captain knows there. You then have to pay somebody extra to rig and weight map. You then have to pay somebody extra to animate and potentially visual effects, depending on what kind of game you're making. Obviously, if you're just doing a shooter, you can buy an explosion pack off of a marketplace and use it. It's not a big deal. If you're making something that deals with more with magic, then you actually have to have an artist who can make mathy stuff. You're so guaranteed a job if you can do visual effects. So here's the problem with visual effects. You have to be really good at math and really good at art. And typically people that are really good at art hate math, and people that are really good at math can't draw or art anything. And so that's why they're oftentimes called the unicorn, is because you have to find somebody that actually is really good at both of those. Right now, every single game studio on the planet is hiring a visual effects artist. I guarantee it, because they are that hard to find. Hang on, I'm going to answer what he had said.
what point during this cycle? Okay, no, okay, model. So $1,500. I got there. About $1,500 for a model. You know, I don't know if I can break down specifically. I did calculations without engineering. It was about $8,000 from concept to fully animated character model. So it's expensive if you go AAA. Now, if you go kid in art school, you know, a couple $100 for the model, maybe $50 to rig it. Originally, when I was doing test assets, I hired this Ukrainian team. One was a modeler, one was an animator, and they charged me, it was $300 for the model, and then another $300 for animation on it. But it wasn't like fully engineered, so all I could use them for were basically just looped videos to show off what it looked like. So the cost will really depend on the level of quality. How many triangles do they have to make pretty at the end of the day? That's a good question, though. And it gets you kind of an idea of how expensive things can start to be. So if you've got 30 heroes, you know, go ahead and do that math there. You're looking at, whoops, $250,000 just for 3D models.
Where at some point are you allocating time or budget for audio?
Oh, okay, so audio guy, I get where we're going. All right, so in theory, audio should be somewhere, you know, honestly, I'd say around about here. Because once they start moving, you need to be able to put in all those pretty little sound bits to where my shit jingles on every step. My footstep sounds like this on metal, or it sounds like this on wood or water, or my gun is going to sound like this. By the way, gun sounds are the most important sounds in a game. We had gone through several iterations of really wimpy sounding gun sounds that we thought kind of sounded sci-fi and cool, and universally everyone hated them. So gun sounds are super, super important. People want to know that when they want to feel that when I'm shooting this gun, that it sounds like, it feels like I'm shooting this gun. So in theory, audio would fit here. But if you ask Steven, who's now working on Rocket League, right? Yeah. Where I put him in this process, it would have been probably somewhere around here. Mainly because I had a hard time finding somebody, and that was also an experience on my part of knowing when I should have hired him. I was so busy. I mean, this is also for you entrepreneur in trainings. I don't sleep super well, so I don't get up super early. So I had our office hours from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., figuring everybody gets to sleep in, you don't have to deal with traffic, hooray! I would be there from 9 in the morning until midnight. So the rest of the people got to go home at 6, but my happy ass was there till midnight. That was 3.5 years of that. So if you guys want to complain about, oh, your boss is so stupid, or I do so much work, you go ahead and ask your independent game company studio owner how many hours he puts in a week. And it's way more than you'd expect. Only recently I've been able to start getting out of work at 5:30, 6 o'clock. Basically because I have, you know, I don't have a million little cats I've got to herd into a corner. But anyway, audio in theory should be up here with the animation. So that way, when I do my ground punch, bam, it's got this great sound to it. Paul Fox. Anybody ever heard of Paul Fox? He was Uncharted 4 audio engineer, and Naughty Dog's like one of their chief audio engineers for whatever, 20 years. He came to speak at Little Brother a couple years ago. My God, it's been that long. And he made the joke that audio engineers always get crapped on by shoved at the QA/QC portion of the show. And yeah, he wasn't wrong. Right? Apparently in AAA they do that as well. They kind of slap them in at the last minute. Good luck. It's just the harsh reality of it, because at the end of the day, you know, nothing is ever probably ideal except for the big companies that have money to burn. Speaking of money to burn in big companies,
Do any of you guys know the history of Overwatch?
Yeah.
The game itself?
Kind of do. It was Project Titan.
Yep. So Blizzard had spent 7 years, and close to, if I'm not mistaken, they had put like $200 million into developing an MMO, which they had titled Project Titan. And Project Titan was, boy, man, City of Heroes is kind of old. Anybody here play City of Heroes?
A little bit.
So it was a little bit like City of Heroes and a little bit like World of Warcraft. There's this big metropolis city that in the daytime you were this Clark Kent and you had this regular old personality and you would have a day job in the game and you would have employees to manage and you'd have a shop that you would run and you'd go home and do chores and shit like that. And so they built it and built it and built it. And then at night, like, you get this call to protect the city. Is this starting to sound like Overwatch's backstory? Well, they couldn't, literally, the article said we couldn't find the fun in it. Turns out nobody wanted to do day job the simulator. And so they shelved all of it. Can you imagine just shelving a couple $100 million of development? Man. Think of the games you could make for that. Well, they did. They made Overwatch. So they took all the heroes, they ripped out the 3D art and whatnot, turned it into Overwatch. And that's what you've got. You actually have the leftovers from a game that they didn't want to launch. So, but you could argue that was the right call. Because how many other MMOs have super failed in the last 15 years that just were boring to play? So that was the right call. And of course, Blizzard knows what they're doing because they've been doing it for so long. And that's a really hard call to make because I tell you what, when we had 60 heroes planned, and I had to murder 30 of them. And that was hard because I was very close to it. I was the designer. I was the one, there's a bunch of concept art in there that I wanted to see turn into illustrations, that I wanted to see turn into characters and models and that kind of stuff and run around my world. But at the end of the day, you have to make tough calls. So it took me 3 years to raise the money, going to every networking presentation that I could, meeting every person I could, being shot down literally hundreds of times. You think it sucks to ask somebody out on a date and be turned down once? Hundreds of times. I was told no, 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 no. And finally, the person I had pitched to enough times says, you know what, seems like you got your shit together, let's do this. I had $300 left in my bank account when he called me up and said, what are you doing? I was like, put my resume together, couldn't raise the money. I burnt through all of my savings. I have a daughter, I can't just not pay for food. And he was like, that thing you're working on, did you get any money? I was like, well, I got a bunch of follow-on money, but nobody wanted to start it. I'll tell you what follow-on is in a minute. And he says, well, how much do you need? I said, honestly, I can't do the thing where I only raise enough for a month and then have to see if I can get it the next month, because that's not fair to the developers. How would you work for a place that you weren't sure if you'd have pay after the next week? And he says, all right, how much? I said, $600,000 for minimum product. He goes, okay, I'll do it. That came from 3 years of pitching and being turned down hundreds of times. At the end of the day, we ended up raising about $1.5 million. I made some mistakes on some staffing, and we had to fix some stuff in development longer than planned, and yada, yada, yada. But it's funny to say because it'll sound like a game developer telling you how much he loves his own game. I do. It is really fun. I want all of you to play it, and you'll like it too. You'll find a hero that you're going to love. A lot of the heroes troll other characters in wonderful ways. Some of them were designed specifically to troll, which Emily knows very well. She's our test dummy, so when we try and do new stuff, she's the one that gets to suffer. But it is so frustrating right now having this really wonderful product that we love playing, and so for everybody else that has played our current version of it, really likes playing, the number one thing we keep getting asked is, where are all of the players? So that's when you have to then make the hard choice of, do I launch Gold on Steam and hope it just goes viral, or do we sell to a publisher? Well, at the end of the day, the money
makes the decision. And since I have to make up that $1.5 million of somebody else's cash, the safer bet is sell to a publisher. And there's nothing wrong with that. You hear a lot of bad press about Electronic Arts, Activision, that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, they do buy games and get it out to the market for you. People get too close to it and forget that this is a business. If you can't make a product that sells, you have no business being in this industry. It's going to sound harsh, but it is real. If I am so lucky to be able to continue making games, I would not hire a single person here who doesn't look at it as a business first. Because that tells me that you're honest. Because, I'll get to you, I hired so many distributed people who just were lying to me about, oh, we're going to make this so beautiful and so pretty. Load me up with all the work you can. Weeks going by, deadlines being missed. Oh, come on, just believe me, just believe me. At the end of the day, I want you to say, I want you to pay me $1,000 and I will give you this thing. Because then I know you're actually looking at it right. And I don't want to crush all of your hopes and dreams tonight. It just turns out that way from time to time. But look at it as a business first and do your art projects on the side. Because Zach, amazing artist, all he ever wanted to do was work for Blizzard. And all of his side stuff, he would do these art jams on the side, and it looked exactly like everything you ever saw out of Blizzard. And so someday he's going to be one of their lead character artists. Or maybe, like right now, he's at High Res. He's making the skins for Paladins and the heroes for Paladins. And, that's all former Blizz developers. So he may be there happy his whole life. But it's because he put a lot of the work in, and he didn't BS me. So people really respect that. But yeah, so we raised the money, lots of ups and downs. We ran out of money 3 times, and I didn't tell the staff because I managed to, within the last minute, always raise enough to get going by next. They're really heavy behind-the-scenes stuff that employees don't always get to know. But at the end of the day, we've got a good product. Now it's my job to make sure that the world knows about it. So, please, Wednesday. Oh, and if any of you live stream, are there any streamers in here? YouTubers, Twitchers, anything like that? Not one of you.
I could start if you leave for free.
Yeah, seriously, email Emily, and I'll put her email address up here, and she'll get you a game key. If whomever we can, we just need warm bodies playing on Wednesday, and I know some of you guys have classes and stuff, or just even on our weekends and stuff. We do game days pretty regularly. The game experience is vastly different. We have hyper-aggressive killer murder bots in the game, but it's not the same as playing against people who typically work together and do lots of really cool, fun things that you didn't expect, because the bots will just come at you until you're dead. Humans will screw with you until they're giggling and laughing. Case in point, we're making a reaction video for one of our marketing things, so anybody that on camera with like our game on screen and them in the corner, however you want to do it, tubers here and then your happy little face there. We're going to compile those into a game trailer just to get reaction, because again, people love seeing emotional stuff, so if you're happy, you're smiling, or screaming and slamming your keyboard, that actually helps sell product, because if I see somebody so upset that they're slamming their keyboard on the ground, man, I may want to try that game to make other people get that upset. One of the things, I was talking about the character's trolls, we have a character that ability is to relocate. And so this is a side snapshot of one of our platforms from our Skullball arena. So anyway, underneath there's lava. And so the character, you get 3 seconds and you switch places with somebody. And so the trick is, off the edge, and then what the other person hears is relocation, and then they're falling into the lava. Now, I come up with a character design for this before we'd even had this map design. I was thinking it'd be really cool because you could save people by switching, tank out with the DPS, or this, or this. Or, you could mess with other people by launching them up into the air, jumping off, blah, blah, blah. Well, it just happened to work out really well because we have a lot of maps that have environmental kill zones in them, or kill volumes. So Emily has shot daggers at us because the character that can also do this goes invisible.
So, it's tons of fun. But, so you had a question back again.
Yes, my question is, since you mentioned you were pitching to publishers, do you have any sort of advice on what publishers look for and how do you pitch to?
Yeah, that's a great question. That one was one I tried doing a little early on, but I should have done more. I was full on believing we could just self-publish because of, games go viral and YouTube and Twitch and that kind of stuff. Well, the market's so saturated right now, every game is trying to go viral. So again, it makes it, you're one of 10,000 games trying to go viral at the same time. And typically YouTubers and Twitch streamers only, the biggest ones, if you take a look, they only stream the ones that have the highest demand for them to watch. So you'll see they'll always play Overwatch, or they'll always play Hearthstone, or they'll always play PUBG, or they'll always play this or the other thing. So they don't really work a lot with indie studios because they don't want to lose their audience for a game that nobody's ever heard of. I didn't realize that was going to be a problem really early on, and so I didn't really approach publishers to begin with. Okay. So, in as much as you are looking for jobs from places and looking at what they're hiring for, take a look to see what the publisher is publishing, and that's typically what they'll pick up. So, for example, I pitched to Paradox Interactive, so they typically don't do third-person action games. They prefer RTS or dungeon crawlers. So they say, sorry, it's just not one of the things that we do. And we've approached so many different ones, and at the end of the day, after pitching to about 30 or 40 different publishers, we've got about 5 or 6 that are looking at us right now. And if any one of them pick us up, the next thing you know, I've got 10,000 players, which rolls into 20,000 players, which if you play your cards right, rolls into 1 million players. It's okay to dream big. It's okay to think we will be the next PUBG. Just make sure you've got a backup plan. But yeah, it's still, just look at what the publishers publish, and don't be afraid to email them. One of the big things is people are so scared to ask for help or to say to a company, you take a look at our game. Do approach them early on. If you've got a prototype, go to the publisher as soon as you have a playable demo or an early prototype, because they'll be able to tell right away whether or not they like it. And then they will start, if they pick you up, they can give you the marketing for 2 years of development instead of marketing for a few months because you've just introduced yourself. So early, there's an email address that you can find for pretty much every publisher under the sun, a little bit of Google digging, a little bit of LinkedIn, and you'll be able to find it without too much problem. And don't be afraid, because if you don't pitch your game to them, they're never going to hear about you. Do understand that they're probably getting hundreds of emails a week for games being pitched to them, so they may not necessarily pitch yours. Again, it goes back to you're going to need thick skin to be in this industry, because people will hate on it, or they may just not like it, and it's really easy to feel defeated when you send the thing out that you've worked on for years, and they go, no thanks, we don't want it. So, but at the end of the day, somebody will. J.K. Rowling, you guys ever heard that name in theory? She was turned down by every single publisher. She was turned down 30 publishers. I think it was the number somewhere in there. Before the very last one, she was going to give up and be like, I'm done. She sent it out, and the last one said, I like Harry Potter. I think I'll publish this. And that's one of the most successful book series of all time. And she is, I think, a billionaire at this point. So, and she didn't get that by not emailing people. It's easy to give up. It's easy to say, I don't want to. It's really hard to send that email. Hit that send. The other piece of advice there is keep it short, keep it sweet. If you can attract them in the first sentence, they'll ask you for more info. If you can say, I've got semi-naked robo-tank babes. And they're like, you know what? We want a game with semi-naked robo-tank babes. They'll say, show me what you got. I appreciate that all of you laughed at that. Because at the end of the day, they'll be like, I like what you got. So, so that's kind of the thing. It's a lot of work. Like I said, I apologize. This was very non-linear. I kind of got bored with hearing myself tell the same story for the 50th time. So went in a different direction.
Oh, you talked a lot about market research. Like, did you just have any like general like tips about like what you've kind of experienced, like how you go about?
Yeah, you know what? Take a look at what's coming out. Typically, the big companies are going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars researching what they believe it's going to go towards. So if you can just peek in of what's coming next year, you know, that gives you an idea. It's kind of a toss-up. You can either make a knockoff game and ride the coattails of a big one, or you can try and make something completely unique. And both of those are very valid if you're looking at a business perspective. Because if you realize, okay, so there's going to be 15 Overwatch clones next year, I'm going to make something that looks nothing like it, plays nothing like it, is nothing like it, then you will get customers that are bored with all the clones. And that comes back to like looking at Braid. It looked very visually stunning, or Firewatch. Not Overwatch, Firewatch.
Firewatch.
Yeah, I got that right. Yeah. You know, those are very visually, aesthetically different. And keep in mind as well, contain your vision, contain your scope. Are these things anybody's ever told you guys? So vision is, I want a cyberpunk sci-fi shooter. Scope is, I want 30 characters. Feature creep is, you know what, 31 characters would be even better. 15 maps, 20 maps would be even better. Because at the end of the day, you're now asking your engineers and your artists to make a whole bunch of shit. And you're going to have a whole bunch of half-finished product that you don't get anything shipped. AAA developers will tell you time and time and time and time again, because they told me this, hey Scott, at least you shipped a game. He said, because we've been paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to work on games that never were shipped. So, you know, whether or not I get picked up by a publisher, I will hit the launch gold on Steam button just that way I can say I shipped it. Maybe a phenomenal flop, maybe the next best thing you guys all ever played. It is a ton of fun. It's not super revolutionary, but you'll enjoy it. So, all right, a little more QA for the last 5 minutes, I guess, unless you guys just want to get the heck out of here.
Like you said something about the product key, so when we get the product key, we can play the game.
Yep, activate it on Steam. Right now we have zero community because we have hundreds of people in Europe, hundreds of people in America, hundreds of people in this place or that place, in Russia. People in Russia seem to love us. I think they just love her. They see her on stream and they're like, oh, brunette. So the problem is we can't seem to get them all playing at the same time, so we can't get that ball rolling. And that's why going to a publisher that can market it and get us a lump of people, so that way we can keep going and building and building and building. You can play it by yourself if you just if you jump into a lobby, hit start match, or just wait the 90 seconds for auto start. It will just throw a bunch of murderous bots in there to fight with you. So you can still play it. And that gives you an idea of, you know, the character.
So this character thing can switch places with other characters. Can you do that to allied characters?
We had it originally as that, but then we took it away because too many trolls. So it's okay to piss off the enemy. You don't really want to piss off your own team that much. I mean, you can, I guess, but it's just not with this product. Yeah.
How was the reception of changing your game's business model from free to play to like then? Or
Well, luckily, the thing that's hurting us is also the thing that helps us. Nobody's heard about us, so nobody knew that we've really changed. At the end of the day, most customers were saying we'd rather pay 15, 20, 25 bucks instead of having to grind everything out again and pay hundreds of dollars for whatever.
You mentioned the horror VR game.
Yeah.
I was wondering like what kind of obstacles can you play a game that seems kind of like half cinematic, half like...
Well, luckily the Unreal Engine, the newest version, they have spent a lot of time working with their sequencers to get the cinematic sequencer in it, and it is exceedingly easy if you already have the assets to pose, move, camera spline, everything inside the engine. And I've never used Unity, so I couldn't tell you one way or the other what they have. I have to assume there's something comparable in there. But as long as you have decent animations, you can make decent cinematics. It's not super hard.
Just to address that, Unity did a similar timeline feature in the most recent update. But you reminded me of the Question, you talked earlier about how basically dipping your feet in a lot of different programs was really advantageous because it showed that you had expertise in multiple different things. If you've never used the software, you can't apply for a job that requires that software.
Yeah.
Where does that balance out with being able to really devote yourself to higher level concepts that you can achieve after devoting years to a single piece of software versus like the things you can pull off? For example, if people who are freshmen in this room, if you go to even 2 game jams a year and you spend the next 4 years in Wolverine Soft with 8 jams under your belt and 4 years in Unity, you'll start doing some really cool stuff versus essentially maybe being at the 2.5-year point with Unity and Unreal if you try and learn both of them. Where's the trade-off?
Realistically, I mean, there isn't a trade-off per se. No different than doctors or pharmacists. You will always have continuing education and stuff like this. You don't want to necessarily waste time on a program that you're never going to use. So that goes more into the whatever job you're working at or want to work towards. Learn that first and dabble in the other stuff. Because like the things that the Uncharted audio director or audio engineer worked on, he showed our junior guy, this is how you do this, this is how you do this, this is how you do this. And he knew a ton of stuff, and you will learn naturally doing it. I guess I don't have a better answer for that, as if you keep working on it, you're just going to get better at it. Unless you just suck as a person.
With everything you've learned through this process, let's say you turn back time, you got your initial investment, what would your strategic approach in making a game be different?
Excellent question. I would not hire artists as early on as I did. Because at the end of the day, although I thought I knew what game I was making, I had 300 pages of design document at the start of it. Right now we have maybe 10,000 pages of design documentation. So if that gives you an idea of how unprepared I was, and that was just because I had never made a game before. I have a huge ego. It's amazing that I can push my head through the doors. But I would have, and you won't, it's hard to internalize this enough. Rapid prototype, prototype. Because find where the fun is and then make it look pretty. Where the hell there it is. Literally, inside the engine, you've got your 3D viewport here. Make a damn box. Oh, hell. And move that happy little box everywhere around that space and have him pew, 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 against other happy little boxes. Because that's where you're going to find out where the fun is. Best piece of advice, Kevin Manning, he's a huge industry veteran. He was our character art director, lead 3D modeler, gave me was, he says, the game can look like shit and still be fun and will be very successful, but if it looks really pretty and plays like shit, no one will buy it. So, is that a tear?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Well, it was more also the point that people might buy it, but no one will play it.
Yeah, I mean, same difference. But so, we would prototype. If I had to start it over, I would slow down the ramp up here, find out, is this game actually fun, and then build on the actually fun stuff. Because I would say with the exception of maybe 5 or 6 of our 30 playable heroes, all the rest were redesigned a dozen times in the last 2 years, taking bits and pieces of the original ability to move it and move it and move it and move it. So I'm being hooked off stage. I was almost going to put my email address.
You could.
Emily's the one that hands out game keys. Her name is Emily Springer. There's no Ellen Springer.
Not that I know of.
Springer at 2abor game.com. And email her, or if you guys jump onto Twitch, we're twitch.tv/ is there an underscore?
Yes.
_ SiN Studios. She plays Monday, Wednesday, Fridays from 2 till whenever. If you message her, whatever. We have a Discord. We have blah, blah, blah. However you want to do it, message her, get a game key. You know, even if only one person plays with on Wednesday, I'd appreciate it. We are promoting this to a number of fairly important people that could help keep the game company alive in Michigan. If that matters to any of you.
Let's give a round of applause.